The California Environmental Protection Agency has decided to delay adding labels warning of BPA to canned goods. The reason? Poor people may not have access to fruit and vegetables anymore. So just to give you a little bit of background here, back in 1986, there was Proposition 65, which was approved, and that basically made it so that businesses have to notify consumers about dangerous chemicals found in their products. Just as of last year, BPA was finally added. So, and just in case you don't know what BPA is, it is an estrogen-like substance that is often found in the lining of cans, and in high doses can be damaging to the female reproductive system, can cause cancer, that sort of thing. So in 2012, the BPA was banned from baby bottles and sippy cups, but at the time they were still saying that whatever BPA was leaking into food from canned goods was still reasonably safe. Now that's being brought into question. So ordinarily, certain goods that have these warning labels, they would be put directly on the goods. But instead, on May 11th, California will now require warnings at the cash register saying how BPA is dangerous and that it is included in some of the goods that people might be purchasing. I find this a little bit underhanded in a lot of ways. So Alan Hirsch, who's the Chief Deputy Director of the California EPA's Office of Environmental Health and Hazard Assessment, he had this to say with regards to labeling canned goods. He says, "We think that would be kind of chaotic. Retailers might react by just pulling canned and bottled foods off their shelves entirely. We would want to make sure that people, especially in low-income communities, still have access to canned fruits and vegetables. That's certainly better than not having access to them." So what do you think about that? Do you really think that not letting people know if there are hazardous chemicals in their goods is better than letting people know in case they don't buy them anymore?
There's harmful chemicals in these cans, but we don't want everyone to just stop eating them.
Right.
Come on, that would just be crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, come on, give me a break.
I just think
I don't buy that. But at the same time, that's such an issue because you see a lot of the time, if you go to certain neighborhoods, lower income neighborhoods, like you said, it's so much harder to find healthy foods. There's no Whole Foods or pricey markets like that because they're very expensive, right? They're overpriced places that ritzy people like to go to get their organic kale pancakes, whatever the hell you're eating. But at the same time, though, we have to realize like that is a huge problem because all of a sudden, the less money you make, the less accessibility there is to healthy food, and then the worse the situation gets, and then we're just creating this problem that's just worse and worse, and we're spiraling down.
And that's a really good point, but I still think it's disingenuous because ultimately, I mean, and also in this speech, he talks about, he mentions some concern for retailers, where I'm like, that's really what we're concerned about, right? So Kathleen Roberts, who's the executive director of the Can Industry's North American Metal Packaging Alliance, there's an alliance of metal packaging folks, she made that comment as well. She was basically saying that there'd be confusion and that the warning signs could further limit healthy choices. So I find that to be very controversial, the idea that under the guise of people's health and nutrition, they're saying, we don't want to let people know about these toxic chemicals,
But at the same time, I guess they're kind of saying, like, we don't want to also paint the picture that if you eat these kidney beans, you won't be able to have children.
Right,
that's
exactly.
what people are obviously going to jump to. So there really needs to be a very clear distinction between, how easy it is to get cancer, or if it's just like a 1 in a million thing. But we need to know the exact risks, so it should be on the damn can.
Exactly. I mean, there should be signs that say the brand X, brand Y, they have BPA in their lining. Here's a little background about BPA.
Here's the risk.
Exactly. I think if you put that on the can, that's one thing you think about. Cigarettes, right? You have those warnings directly on there. People still buy them, but at the very least, they're educated. I think putting these warning labels at the cash register, assuming that people might read them, like who's really being like, oh, this warning, BPA, it just seems very silly. To go back to the point you were talking about lower income neighborhoods not having access to quality food, that to me is another big issue. Instead of saying, oh, well, poor people don't have access to good fruits and vegetables, so we can't take their cans away, we should be talking about the fact that they don't have access to fruits and vegetables. As a matter of fact, Jose T. Bravo, who's the executive director of the Just Transition Alliance, which is an environmental health and labor coalition in San Diego, he had this to say. He said, California is willingly putting out the language, excluding a whole subpopulation of people from protection. And I think that pretty much hits the nail on the head.
And look, I don't think the labeling or not is really the issue to getting people to eat healthy foods. That's what they want to say, right? Well, if we label them with BPA and let people know, then all of a sudden people won't buy our canned peaches and people won't be eating healthy. They're going to go to McDonald's instead.
Right.
That's not the case. Do you know how much fresh vegetables that are not in a can gets thrown out every single day? There's very comprehensive laws in Europe that are being put in place now that forces supermarkets to give those away to charities and other things like that. If they're not expired, but they're too old to sell and make money off, no one's going to buy them. But now the way that we do it here in this country, we waste billions and billions and billions of worth of food. So it's like, well, there's other ways around it. It's not the cans or the BPA labeling that's the issue. It's the way that we waste a lot of food.
There's that. That's also the fact that it's 2016. There's definitely technology to be able to avoid putting a BPA into products. There's glass. Even if you freeze the vegetable, right? It's not cheap, which is exactly the point.
Major corporations that don't give a shit about our health.
Anyway, so California has put a halt in the step to become BPA free.